I believe that Western Maryland has a lot of Democrats who would like the opportunity to get back to being the Democratic wing of the Democrat Party. And I know that it's getting harder and harder for us to explain to our children how exactly we are the party of LBJ and MLK when we're so tolerant of so many people being so poor, and so many of the classmates not having their parents home almost ever when they're awake, because they're working 2 or 3 jobs. But I also believe that we can be the party in this state that unleashes the opportunity to grow businesses more rapidly than we've seen in a very long time. Just because you fight to end poverty doesn't mean that you can't expand opportunity all the way up and down the scale. That's what it looks like when we decide this is Maryland at 1%. And we can be so much more than we are now. Thank you and God bless. So please, any thoughts or questions? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for coming to talk to us. And sounds to me like you did make a very good governor.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Well, as a labor union activist, could you touch on your relationship with labor unions and how you dovetail with that, please?
Sure. No, absolutely. Look, so my father was disowned and disinherited from marrying my mom, which meant that I went to college the same way that my mom did, which was on my grandparents', her case, union salary, in my case, union pension. Both my grandparents were my grandfather was a probation officer, ultimately came up here as a family reporter. My grandmother ultimately was a social worker. They were both members of AFSCME. Grandma's 100. I know the importance people having a pension. Some folks want to believe that working people will just all die. Say at 65. I'm here to testify people live to 100 and beyond, and they need to be able to live lives of dignity. But I don't make much of it. But my mom started her life in the McCullough Homes housing projects in West Baltimore, and I'm a road scholar. And I can tell you how you get from one to the other in one generation. I cannot explain it without a good union job. I was trained to organize by UAW on my college campus. We were organizing campus workers. Got kicked out of college, organized student protests. Ended up working on the sub-basement of the AFL-CIO headquarters organizing against NAFTA. I was their lead speaker against NAFTA on college campuses across. When I was president of the NAACP, I'm skipping over a lot, but you not have a drink, we can go through all of it. But when I was president of the NAACP, my first board meeting was also my first budget meeting. It was a month into the recession. I came in to that meeting, I said, we have good news, we have bad news. Now, I would double their finances and their staff and restore the organization to financial health, but at that moment, a recession was starting, and their budget had been cut in half by the guy who was there before. So when I said, well, I have good news and I have bad news, they skip past the good news and go, well, what's the bad news? I said, well, some may see as bad news that we're writing out of our budget assumptions for next year support from our 4 largest corporate contributors. They said, why? I said, well, because we're going to sue 3 of them, Walmart, B of A, and Wells Fargo, and then we're going to support the Employee Free Choice Act. And the combination means that Target probably won't give us money either. When you're the youngest president in their history, it's the beginning of a recession, and most folks there are still trying to figure out who you are and how you got there. They didn't expect you to be willing to take risks like that. But I had Julian Bond backing me up, and we knew that we had a majority of at least 2 votes on that board. And that's how we ran it, because we knew that the NAACP and so many other organizations exist off the backs of hardworking people. And frankly, our 1,200 branches, many of our volunteers can only be volunteers because they're former police officers or teachers, and they have union pensions. And that's what I would say about our party. Is we have a lot of people in our party who are very addicted to union money. And like other forms of addicts, as soon as that fix is done, they just come back and want to talk about the money again. There's no courage in between. It's hard to explain how our party has been so powerful in so many places, in so many ways, and we're down to like 6% of workers in the private sector having union representation. It doesn't make any sense. That's not the party, certainly, of the Kennedys, I can tell you that. That's okay. Sure.
I guess about 5 years before you were at Columbia, I was up the road at CCNY.
All right, hey, when I got kicked out, that's where I went to school.
I went down to John Jay for my master's, but I was real pleased the other day when the governor up there decided to restore what CUNY was always about, which was free tuition,
Yes.
and move it into SUNY. How can we work that here in Maryland? Because we really need it.
Look, we have I've got a nephew who lives with me who's on his way to Anne Arundel Community College, and I can attest to just how expensive our community colleges are. Somebody, it's funny, in all those debates, nobody asked Bernie, there are a lot of people who would deride Bernie for saying that public universities should be tuition free. And no one ever stopped and said, why? Like, why do you think that? And the answer, of course, was, I asked him once, he said, because they were free when I was young. and as a guy who came out, up in Brooklyn, he understood just how powerful, for instance, the New York system, just like the Maryland system. And we have to figure that out. We have to figure out universal pre-K. We're heading into a session next year, 2018, when we expect that this commission, the Kerwin Commission, will come back and will say that we have massive new budget needs, even just to get to a minimally adequate education across the state for every child. But we have to start off with the stipulation that no system in this day and age that is not free from pre-K through grade 14 is actually doing its job. Because right now in this state, for instance, we have a shortage of welders and truckers. And we don't have a shortage of young, tough men, typically the types of guys who are attracted to be welders and truckers. But we do have a shortage of welders and truckers. And both of those, you've got to go to a community college to do. One takes 6 weeks, one takes 6 months. There's no reason we should have a shortage in either. And it's only a system that somehow sees the education you need to support a family as a privilege that's ultimately capable of producing so much poverty. We have got to understand, yes, it's true, every child is not going to be a rocket scientist. But we have a responsibility as the grown-ups of this state to make sure that every child has the opportunity to find a path that actually allows them to support a family. And the only way we can do that is to have a free, high-quality public system from at least pre-K through grade 14. I can make the argument for 16, but if we can get as far as New York just did, that would be a very good step.
Piggybacking on what you said, though, the problem I always have when elections come around and I hear this about, education or whatever, and believe me, I'm totally for public schools.
Sure.
What I do have a problem with, though, is when I hear people screaming all the time about they don't want their taxes raised for anything, and yet they're the ones with the kids. They don't want to support school bonds. They don't want to do this, that, and the other. But they want somebody to give free education. Nothing's free. And I don't have any kids, but I gladly want my taxes to go for education because a stupid country gives you Trump. They don't want to pay taxes, and yet they're the ones having the kids.
Sure.
I can't get that correlation going, and I've never had anybody be able to really answer. You're against taxes, but you drive on the roads, and you want the schools, you want the health care. What's the mindset there?
So, yeah, I'm not, you know, just to be really clear, Dad's white, Mom's black. I grew up in a household with a real sort of tolerance for just talking about things as if we're all one family. So just indulge me in that.
Yeah.
When white people were the face of poverty in America, public will to fight poverty was very high. If you go back to the Great Depression, the WPA, and all those courageous things we did to get our neighbors back to work, you look at the images of poverty. There's a professor much smarter than I am named John Powell, used to be at University of Ohio, now he's at UC Berkeley, California, who's done this work, who's looked at it. It's very high. One of the unintended consequences of the Civil Rights Movement, and us forcing the country to come to grips, and there are also all these very poor black and brown people in this country, was that the public image of who was poor shifted. And when that happened, public support for anything with the word public in it went down. And this is the bitter irony. It screws a lot of poor white people. We don't just have the most incarcerated black and brown people on the planet. We have the most incarcerated white people on the planet. White population is 6 times larger than the black population. No matter how disproportionately poor we are, they'll always use more food stamps than we do. But the image in the mind of a Republican in Washington of who they're screwing over looks like that woman Bill Clinton had come stand next to him when he killed aid for families with dependent children, who did not look like most of the people who were on that. I'll tell you that. But she didn't look like she came out of my family. And so we, as an American people, the Italians have a saying, you can only be rich and stupid for one generation. And you look at the shift from the war on poverty to the war on the poor, and we've been stupid for several generations. And it's killing us. And we've got to be willing to talk to each other. We have to talk, I mean, just like we're grown-ups. Like we're all adults, like we can take it. Because the reality is, funny things happen when we actually show the face of our epidemics. You know, when you say drug addict in this country, for most drugs, people imagine a black person. And we've never been the biggest cohort of users. Even when we're stereotyped around crack, we're not the biggest cohort. But here's the funny thing. When you're enforcing on crack, you don't enforce in the suburbs when somebody's smoking in the basement. You enforce in the tenements when they're smoking in the street. And so, as much as we say crack kills, heroin really kills. The DUIs, you cannot deny who's dying from the DUI. So sorry, from the ODs, just like you can't deny who you bust for a DUI. And so for both of those, we end up with much more tolerance. We have companies that will hire you if you've had a DUI, but they won't hire you if you've smoked a joint or you've been busted for it. Now, honestly, who's more dangerous on our roads? Like really, right? But, and I said to one of them, why? I said, well, because we have a bunch of executives who've been busted for DUIs. And here we are with heroin, and we're all saying we should treat it as a health epidemic, which we should. But part of that's because the images in the newspaper of who is dying evokes sympathy from the entire American